Welcome to the Writing Corner with Authors Alcove. I am your host, Agnes Wolf. Today, I am thrilled to have the amazing Myrenne Mae. She is not only a talented author, but she's also the wonderful guest on my Meet the Author book club, where we discuss her book, this book that we're talking about right now. This is actually the background that I used on that particular episode. So if you have not listened to that, definitely read this book and then go and listen to that as well. She also has been a co-host on there talking about some other books, including Rebecca Hartwell's book, A Heart of Flame. But anyway, we're here to talk about her book. You may know her for her incredible fantasy novel, which features a daring Druidess with a 1,000-year-old secret, a love story that defies the magic of the realms, and an ancient soul hungry for vengeance. So Myron's world building contains steampunk elements, magitech, and unforgettable characters. So today we'll be diving into her writing journey, her world of the 5 realms. So welcome, Myrenne.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Could we just start just by you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit what got you into the writing world?
Oh, absolutely. I used to be a teacher, and I have always enjoyed reading a good book. I would swipe romance novels off my mom's shelf when I was younger. And so I've always been a big reader. And there came a year when I read about 50 books, and that was the most I had ever read. And I was so inspired by all the amazing authors that put their books out there. And I thought, I want to do this. Like I have ideas. I want to do this. And I had kind of a life-changing occurrence. I got pregnant with twins, and they turned my life upside down. And so instead of teaching, I stayed home with them. And if you are familiar with any type of creator brain, your brain never shuts off, right? It just keeps creating all the time. And even when you're tired, your brain just wants to keep making things. And uh, so I came up with this idea from actually the title. I really love creating stories from titles. And anything I hear that's like a strange phrase, I'm like, oh, that would make an interesting book title. And so I do not remember exactly where I heard this phrase, or maybe I just put it together from a couple of phrases, but 3 coins from a dead man's pocket kind of stuck in my brain. And I thought, well, where are these coins coming from? And why are they in this guy's pocket? And why is he dead? And who killed him? And so I had all of these questions. And I just started writing down random things while the babies were sleeping and in the middle of the night when we were up, having that midnight snack because that's what babies do at 2 a.m., and so so I just started writing down all of these ideas, and it turned into a rather large sheet of paper. And all of a sudden I ran out of room, and I thought, okay, I need a bigger sheet of paper. And so I just taped this huge piece of butcher paper up on my wall in my hallway. And anytime I had a spare moment, I would just jot down ideas. And after about 2 years of this, I had all of these ideas on this huge piece of butcher paper. And when my babies, my little twins, when they were old enough to go to preschool a couple of days a week, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna start writing. And it took me a couple of years to kind of get it. But from drafting all the way to publishing, it was about 5 years of just ideas churning and writing when I got the chance. And it was something that my brain would not let me let go. It was like, you've got to write this down or you're not sleeping tonight. And so it's like, okay, I guess I'm stuck writing. But it was good for me because it kind of helped me escape, the difficulties of life for a little bit. And that's why we read fiction, right? That's why we read fiction. Because we get out of our regular day-to-day things, and it takes us on a journey to a place that we never imagined. And so it kind of helped me get through the days that were hard and the struggle, because I always had something to look forward to, when I had a moment to myself. So that's kind of how this story came about. And it's been a really incredible journey.
That is so beautiful. I love that. And by the way, I think you already knew this, but I have twins as
That's
well.
right.
I have
Yeah.
twins. Yep. I have 2 older daughters, but my youngest 2 are twins. So
Now, did you say they were boy girl twins?
They are girl twins. Yours
Oh,
are boy,
girl twins.
right?
Okay. Mine are boy girl twins. Yes, yes. And I do have an older, yeah, she's the seventh grader. But yes, so my twins now are 6 and they are first graders. So
Mine are
yeah.
kindergartners, so they're just a year apart. We should get them
Yeah.
together sometime.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
So, without giving away any spoilers, or not too many spoilers anyway,
Okay.
could you give us a plot summary of the book?
Oh my goodness. You know how sometimes they say, your plot summary, it's better hearing it from someone else because you're so deep in the weeds that it's hard to give a scope. So I'll try my hardest to do that. So my main character, her name is Evelina, and she is a druid. And when I say that, people go, "Wait, don't you mean druid?" And I go, "Well, yes, but druid is in my world is kind of the masculine form, and druid is the feminine form." And so she is a druid who has druidic magic, who guides souls to the afterlife. But her job is to guide souls to the heavenly afterlife. And there is a darker afterlife where tarnished and corrupted souls go, and we explore that more in book 2. But so anyway, so that's what a druid does. And there is an ancient soul that has done some naughty things to stay around for 1,000 years, and he wants to make a name for himself in the realms, and he is the commodore of the realm of souls, because there are 5, and one of them is the realm of souls. And she kind of has an epic battle with him to save the realms basically from being destroyed. The realms are floating islands that are held together by a thing called purdas, which is another name for a boundary or a barrier. And he wants to destroy this barrier so that the all of the realms kind of view him as this savior. Uh, and so she kind of battles it out with him, but along the way she comes across a cursed mage who only she can see because he is in the liminal plane. And the liminal plane is an existence where only druids can view and see, and he has been banished here by an evil spirit. And so he thinks he's going to use her to get out of this curse. And in reality, and without giving too much away, her love and her spirit of caring and love just kind of undo him, and he ends up kind of giving everything of himself without meaning to. So there's some steamy moments between them. There is some growing. Our main character Evelina, she's 30. She's not young. She's a little older. She's been burned by love when she was younger. So she has some growth to do, and we see that through this whole thing. And I'm going to tell you, everybody who reads it at the end messages me, and they're like, "I cannot believe you are making me ugly cry right now," because the ending is a little, you're gonna cry. So that's kind of what it's all about.
So, you did mention that there are spicy scenes.
There are.
How do you find the balance between those elements to ensure that it serves the story's emotional depth?
That's a good question, and that's something I struggled with a lot this first book, and I feel like I'm getting better at it when it comes to the second book, because you don't want to just throw in a scene where it doesn't mean anything, right? But you want to have those characters moving in their relationship together, and so it has to be kind of timed correctly. But it also, that's why we call it fantasy. It also happens on something that you might have thought, "Oh, I wish somebody would do this." Like, I wish in my life this would happen, right? I wish in my life that, my husband or my boyfriend or whoever I love would just like totally make out with me in public because, I want everybody to see how awesome his love is for me or whatever it is, right? And that's why we call it fantasy. That's why we call it, we read these books and we have these experiences that we probably never actually do in real life. So we have some of these moments where I'm like, you know what, I think they just need to do something a little crazy right here because they have the opportunity. So why not? And we see Thorben, which is her love interest, kind of bring out a little bit of her daringness um, as they progress in their relationship, and but yet she brings out this wonderful tenderness in him that he didn't think he had. Even his sister doesn't think he has it, and so everybody. So it's a really wonderful change to see how they both make each other grow and they kind of push each other to be somebody that they didn't think they would ever be.
So, you mentioned she's 30 years old and she navigates this world. What message do you hope resonates with readers through Ava's journey and her character arc?
So I feel like um, the audience for new adult books is very different than 20 years ago, right? So like I mentioned, I used to swipe romance reads off of my mom's bookshelf. Those romance reads had the shirtless guy with the long hair on every single cover, right? And you knew exactly what to expect in these books. They have damsels in distress. You know, they might have been feisty, but they weren't out like doing karate and killing people and like, fighting Satan's creatures or, whatever it is, right? They were very typical female roles. And I feel like that particular age of people who grew up in those are now like me. They're older, they have families, and they're tired of seeing um, this damsel in distress kind of thing. Like they want to see the dude in distress and they want to see that girl go out, that woman go out and kick some butt and save the guy. And that's kind of what happens here. And I feel like more and more people, they want to be able to relate to that character, right? I have so many people go, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're reading another teenage thing where this 3,000-year-old vampire thinks she's awesome. I mean, in 3,000 years, he wants this whiny 18-year-old. Do we really, And I'm not saying that those books aren't great because I love Twilight and I read all of them, you know. But I think that particular age group has moved on and they want to see an older main character. They want to see somebody struggling with life choices. They want to see someone like them. And I'm really hoping that as we grow, as this series grows, we get to see more and more of that, right? So Avelina, she's got like a second chance at love kind of thing with Thorben because, like I said, she had a little love thing going on when she was younger. And, we're going to see how she has this love and she loses it when we think she might lose it, you know, uh, hence the crying thing. But, I think audiences are changing their minds about what they want to see. And I'm hoping that this will be along those lines, if that makes sense.
So, what was your favorite part of writing this particular novel? And what was surprising too about writing?
Wow. Okay. So, oh man, my favorite part of writing it. I think my favorite part of writing, and this might answer both questions at once, is playing with descriptions, putting words together that you wouldn't normally see together. I love kind of juxtapositioning words to where you wouldn't think that these two words would go together. There is a moment where we see Thorben kind of opening up a little bit. We see his soft spot for Avelina, and he says something about how she is unraveling who he thought he was, and how the person, I should just find the quote because it's so good. I can't even like read it correctly without probably butchering it. Anyway, so he just talks about how when someone comes along and you weren't expecting that person, but they are suddenly everything that you needed, and they just begin to unravel you from the inside out, whether you want it to happen or not. Um, and I just felt like that particular moment was something so special because I think we can all relate to that, right? We all relate to that one moment where I meet somebody and I wasn't expecting this I wasn't expecting them to bring out this vulnerability in me, but they did. And all of a sudden I'm growing and I'm learning something about myself that I didn't know would happen. So I loved that moment of him opening up, and it kind of made me realize who he truly was. And I also love describing him, and I love describing the way he is, just using some really different words. And if you want, I can go back to my manuscript and look up that quote. But
So you self-published, correct?
I did, yes.
What was that like? What was that experience like for you?
So self-publishing or being an indie author, there are so many facets to that that I was not expecting. And it was almost like there was a list of about 50,000 things that you needed to do all at once. And I was like, how am I ever going to get through this list? Um, it was things like get your socials out there. And of course there's a gazillion social platforms and everyone's like, oh, you've got to be on all of them all the time. And I'm like, well, that's exhausting. I don't want to do that. Get a newsletter out, get a website up. And like as far as your manuscript goes, just even the book itself, I'm learning that writing the book is probably the easiest part of the whole process. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think it's true.
I hear from a lot of authors.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because you have to be a good business person, a good business minded person. And unfortunately, I am more creative but I'm not business minded. So this is a growing journey for me when it comes to that kind of thing. But yeah, writing the book. And then, I highly suggest that anybody make sure you pay for developmental editing and line editing, because those two things will make your book so much better. There are lots of books that I've read where maybe somebody didn't pay for that, and you can totally tell in the first 3 pages.
And we have a very good developmental editor. Both of us
We
share that particular
do.
one.
Yes. Yes.
Rebecca
Oh my
Mae
gosh.
Hartwell. We are just going to plug her for just a moment. Go check her out.
Yes, Rebecca, man, she gave me like 5 pages of notes, and I thought, oh my gosh, but they were all great. It was all good, and it made me really reconsider some things. And yes, absolutely, like you invest in it for the long haul, right? Because they say you only have one chance for first impression. So I think that the fact that writing the book was the easy part was like the most surprising. But then kind of understanding that everyone says you have to do all of these things. You don't. Start with what you can manage, right? You're going to start with the things that you are comfortable with and then branch out as you go. And I just and I want people to keep in mind, and I think this is probably partly why maybe some people go into indie authors to begin with, is that you're creating one thing that you can resell and redo over and over and over and over, right? How many authors are we still reading that wrote something 100 years ago, 200 years ago, right? Because it's something that will never die. It is something that you do not have to do over and over and over again to get paid for it every single time. Like you've already done the work. So make sure you do the work correctly and well the first time around. Would be like if anybody is listening that wanted to kind of jump into the author journey like that, that is what I would say.
So you mentioned that you heard that you're supposed to be on all the socials. What socials do you actually
Yeah.
use, and which one, and how do you use them to kind of help build your audience and promote your work?
Yeah, that's a tough question too. So I do have a Facebook group, and I don't post on there every day, but I will say that Facebook is where I'm most comfortable, because it grew with me through the years, and I've been on there probably since, I don't know, 2002 or something. Like that's how long I've been on Facebook. So I am very comfortable with that platform. TikTok, I am getting more comfortable with, and I do enjoy making videos now that I've kind of got the hang of it. But if you're going to ask me for like advice on how to get views, I have zero advice. Like I am happy if my video gets 500 views. I'm like, woo. um, so I just kind of I hop on there and I post when I think is fun and different and funny. And I just hope that it resonates with somebody. Um, and I am on Instagram. I don't understand Instagram. Like I struggle hard with Okay, it's not just me. I struggle hard with Instagram. I do not get it. So I'm on there, but I don't post a whole lot because I don't understand the platform. And TikTok also has affiliate Lemon 8. It's very pretty. Like if you really like pretty scrapbooky things, it's very pretty. On the other hand, I do not find the algorithm friendly at all. So I struggle with that one too. Um, but there's so many things to be out there. And that's why I was saying, like, you kind of got to limit yourself to what you can handle, right? I can handle Facebook and I can handle TikTok. That's about it. Like every now and then I'll post something on Instagram when I have an extra second, but those are the platforms that I kind of visit the most.
So what has your approach been outside of social media for marketing, publishing, whatever?
Yeah. Uh, so have you visited the Kickstarter platform?
I've heard about it and I've gotten links to that, but please share.
Okay. So what I wanted to do now, if anybody has not visited the Kickstarter.com website, please do. If you love anything that is special edition books, working directly with an author, wanting to support an author directly, getting things signed, getting merch, getting, sprayed edges, foiled books, omnibuses, I mean, brand new books, you name it, it is on there and it is cool. And there are so many projects on there. Um, but what I did is I wanted to kind of start the whole thing off with a big bang. And I published my book for the very first publication on Kickstarter. And what was cool about that is I got some huge exposure. And the reason I did it was for that exposure and to create a sense of community that I could reach on Kickstarter's platform that I would not be able to reach in any other social media. I had people talking to me about my work from Denmark, Australia, Sweden, the UK, Canada. There's no way I would have reached those people otherwise. And and there were so many neat people to talk to and such a great community there that didn't even know who I was. I mean, I'm just like this random person, that lives in Podunk, Arkansas, that like somebody was like, "Oh, your work sounds really amazing. Here, take my money." And I was like, "This is great. Like I've got people who are fascinated by what I'm doing and the support, like when you get that support or when you get that fan who is like, I devoured your book in 3 days. When is book four? You're like, I'm so sorry. Book four is not even written, um, it keeps you going and you get that fan base and you really get to build a sense of community and a sense of like rivalry, not rivalry, that's the wrong word, like excitement about what you're doing. And then all of a sudden it's not just you being excited, it's the 100 people who backed your project being excited for you and supporting you. Now I'm not going to say I made a ton of money on Kickstarter because I didn't. I think I scraped out with about $400 in my pocket, but that wasn't the point. The point was to get a community excited about a new project, to get them rallying. That was the word, rallying around something new in the fantasy world, and getting them exposed to a world that's more steampunk rather than the typical fae and dragon and wolf shifters and whatever else is out there. And I'm not saying those are bad because everybody loves them, but I wanted to bring something new to the table, and Kickstarter gave me a really big platform to do that on. And so if you have not checked it out, go just check out publications and search, and you will find so many things. And I have backed a lot of really cool projects from Kickstarter, and you get some really amazing things when you do.
I was just touring the site just as you were talking. I'm like, okay, I am going to look into this because I've heard it, like it's been on my radar, but I have not actually looked up. So I'm like, and I'm like, okay. So I'm leaving it on my screen so that way I can look at it after.
Your paycheck will be gone. And I'm just telling you, it'll be gone in a matter of just, 4 or 5 back. You will have just spent money. But it's really great. Like there are times where I'm like, I really want this. And I would just be like, ask my husband, can I spend $140 on books? And if that's what you want to spend your money on, But and even if you can't spend that kind of money, right? You can get ebooks for $7, $5, whatever, $10, and you're still supporting that author, and just getting an ebook. So it's
My
great. It's the message the authors right on the platform.
So my husband, that is one thing he can understand is
Oh,
me
good.
purchasing books because he is a big reader too. We do not like the same genre at all. He's not a fantasy reader. He
Mm.
likes, really rough, like I think he likes to say he likes to read senseful acts of violence. So,
Oh man. Oh,
so
that was
that's his.
interesting.
And then all four of my girls were into reading. My oldest, she has a baby. She's 20 years old. So she's kind of not, I keep recommending books and she's like, I'm still reading that book you gave me like 2 years ago. But my other three, they're big readers too. So
That's
and
good. That's good. You have to foster that, right? You have to foster the love of reading in your kids, and I'm with you there because, like I said, my mom loves romance, but she doesn't love fantasy, and she's struggling through my book, and she's reading it because she's my mom, but I can tell she doesn't care for it because it's fantasy. And then my dad loves classics, and he's read my book like 3 times and just skipped over all the steamy parts because he's like, I don't really care to read that. I'm like, okay. My sister loves realistic fiction. She's given me books to read, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I don't want to read realistic fiction. I have enough real. I don't need any more real, but that's what she loves to read. And so and my daughter loves, my oldest, she loves biographies. And I'm like, oh, boring. But she loves to hear about women's history. Like, that's her gig. So I love the fact that you can find, going back to the Kickstarter, like you can find so many things, for all ages. Like, I bought 2 books of math games for my kids. So when we play cards, we can play cards with math games, right? They don't know they're math games, but like, I bought 2 books for math games because I'm like, these are cool. So yeah, there's just such a wide variety, and I just encourage anybody to go and check it out and just support an author directly because it's really neat.
I'm definitely going to be checking it out. So I'm going to ask you the question, or at least a variation of the question I ask everybody. I first want to just thank you so much for being on here. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all that you've done so with Authors Alcove. But what advice would you give to an indie author about navigating just the whole writing process, marketing, publishing, anything,
Mhm.
especially if you're thinking fantasy genre?
Oh, so I mean, first of all, about advice. Um, you know, that something different is going to work for everybody, and there's so much advice out there. I mean, you can literally go to TikTok and just like look up, writing tips, right, or whatever it is. So I'm going to say this about advice: do what works for you. A lot of people are like, well, I've got to write, 30,000 words in a day, or I'm sorry, in a month to get a book written. Well, no, I mean, you can. Um, but like I said, it took me 5 years to get book one off the ground. And the timing is really your own. I try to write every day. Does my life allow me to write every day? No. um, some days it's only 500 words, other days it's 2,000. I have a list going because it helps me physically see. Maybe that's one of my writing tips. I have a list going that helps me to physically see how I'm meeting my goals. This is just everything that I've done, and most of those boxes are not checked. Like, hey, I want to write 2,000 words a day, but I didn't make it today. I only have a handful of checked boxes. And I would say not to put too much pressure on yourself. Ask lots of people to help. There are so many authors out there who are willing to read anything you've written and give you feedback. I've read chapter 1 of a book that wasn't finished just because somebody said, hey, I just want some feedback on my writing style, or I just want some feedback on this character. Do you feel like she's believable? Or just the other day, I messaged a friend and I said, hey, I've got 11 chapters of book 2 written. I just want your opinion. And she's like, send it my way. I'll read it. And so there is a lot of community, but you have to reach out. You can't just expect everybody to come to you because no one's going to do that. Right. I would say join Facebook groups. There's a really great romance Facebook group that I'm a part of that's affiliated with a Facebook group for readers. You know, you can join, there's so many groups. Find your community, find your people, but you've got to reach out, right? You've got to put yourself out there. And I know that's uncomfortable, but you got to get used to it. And when it comes to like social media and things, TikTok really likes to see faces. And I know, and again, but if that's not what you want to do, don't do it. Like, do not put yourself out there if that's something you don't want to do. Go ahead and do page flips all day long. Those do great sometimes too. Like, I'm not going to say not. But so I think there I guess what I'm trying to say is push yourself, but don't make yourself compromise your beliefs and your values if that's going to push you somewhere where you don't want to be. You know, make some decisions. And I've had to make some decisions on my journey too. Like, what do I want to say on these videos? What do I want to say in my things? How am I going to present myself? You know, it's hard being upbeat and happy about it all the time. I'm excited, obviously, but there are rough days, you know, and nobody wants to hang out with a Debbie Downer. And that's hard too, because, you know, you're like, man, this is real and this is hard, but you got to push through, right? If you're going to do it. So I would just say, find your people, find your community, be willing to give and take, be willing to reciprocate, be willing to be encouraging, and be willing to, you know, be friends with somebody, even if they're in another city or another country, and you know, and just hone that sense of community around you, because that's what's going to pull you through, really. Even if you just have a Facebook group, that sense of community is what's going to keep you going.
Yes. That is the one thing that I keep hearing over and over is people keep saying the sense of community. Find, I think it goes back to find your tribe, you know, like
Yes.
find the people that are going to help you. And it sounds like you've made a lot of relationship with readers and writers as well, not just your audience, but outside as well.
Yeah, and I mean, and there are people that will see my TikToks who have not read my book, who did not go to my Kickstarter, but like I'm just chit-chatting with them on TikTok because we met there, right? But then there are other people who I found on my Kickstarter. Like, there's this amazing woman in Denmark who like is constantly promoting my stuff. I didn't ask her to, but you know, we just kind of hit it off online, uh, and she does an amazing job, and she's so supportive. You know, and I met her through the Kickstarting platform. And like I said, that Facebook group, like, I met Rebecca in that Facebook group. And she has been so supportive and phenomenal. And I'm always like, what can I do to help? You know? And so, yeah, you just kind of gotta reach out and get out of your comfort zone a little bit, when it comes to finding your people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Myron. I really do appreciate it. Before we wrap up, what is one piece of advice you would give to a not yet published author looking to break into the fantasy writing world?
I would say, don't give up and just keep going. Because it's so hard to give up. Or it's so hard to keep, it's so easy to give up, but I would just say, you know, just know that nobody has said this story like you, right? Nobody has written this story like you were going to write it. No one is going to make these characters like you were going to make them. No one's going to make that plot exactly like you were going to make it, right? I mean, every single journey or every single book boils down to a single thing, and it's somebody going on a journey, right? That's all it is, whether it's an emotional journey, a physical journey, whatever it is. Every single book, every single story is about a journey. And but no one is going to write that journey like you. No one is going to make those characters like you. No one is going to say every single thing or have those thoughts or put those words together like you are going to do it. And the world needs your voice. So I would just say, know that the world needs your voice. Know that the world needs to hear your story the way you're going to do it, because no one else is going to do it that way.
Thank you again so much. And I agree with that 100%. That's one thing when people say, I don't want to tell my idea because I don't want someone to steal my idea. And I think to myself, even if they try to write what you shared with them, it will never compare to what you are going to write. I don't feel like you can steal an idea because it's going to be so complex and so different and just taken from a totally different worldview. Anyway, I truly appreciate your time and insights. And to my listeners, if you've been enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review. It helps not only the podcast reach more people, but also gets this incredible author's books like Myron's in front of more readers. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also love my conversation with Rebecca Maeve Hartwell, author of A Heart of Flame. And then Myrenne Mae has been an absolute delight today. And you can find her work on her website, MyrenneMaeBooks.com, correct?
Yes.
And thank you again, Myrenne, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
Awesome.